Did you also assume you would be successful when you're an adult? My dad, many times growing up, tried to get me to learn how to be, well, not how to be a mechanic, but just how to work on a car, learn how a car works, how to change the oil, how to change a tire. I listened to most of that. I can change the oil if I need to in a car. I can change a rim and a tire if I need to. But I always had a response whenever I had enough or got too bored or my hands hurt or I just got over it. And I said, Dad, when I'm older, I'm going to be rich enough to pay somebody to do this for me so I won't have to do it. I believe that. I wish I'd listened to him a bit more growing up, because I always told him, yeah, I'm gonna have plenty of money to be able to pay somebody, pay a mechanic to fix my fancy car. But now that I'm an adult and I'm not a multimillionaire, that $3 to $5 grand for a big service, it hurts. I always wanted a career in film growing up, and I think making this YouTube channel is kind of going back to my roots a little bit, and it feels good. I am out of practice. It's going to take a few videos to get me up to speed, but you know, these first few videos aren't about getting my videos out there. These first few videos are just practice for myself. Actually, I might expand on that, because I wanted to do film in university as well, and I started to do a degree in mass communication. Pretty quickly though, I realized that if I actually wanted to get into film, I would have been making films and getting them out there, doing film festivals, making YouTube videos, but I wasn't. I was studying how to talk to people and a bunch of other stuff that within 1 year I realized it just wasn't good. I started doing mechanical engineering and thought that would be a good switch up, but after as I was in my second year of uni, I started looking for some jobs in the industry and quickly realized that the mechanical industry in Australia was not doing too well for engineering. So what I did instead was I dropped out. I took 6 months off and separated myself from study a bit as I tried to figure out where I wanted to go with life. I still wanted to do engineering. I still had the dream of getting into film, but again, I just wasn't doing anything about it. So stick with engineering. After 6 months off, I played a bit of D&D, because escaping your problems and going into a fantastical world was a pretty good idea at the time. And then 6 months later, I decided to return to study and applied to TAFE for a civil engineering diploma, which is basically the first 2 years of a civil engineering degree at university, and then joined up that. And it felt good because it felt like I was getting my life back on track. So I did that for 2 years, and then it was time to get a job. So I got out of Domino's, which I'd been at for 5 years, and then applied everywhere, put a resume into multiple engineering firms trying to get a role just as a drafter, and started doing civil and structural drafting for about 2 years. From that point there, things was going pretty well. And then I thought, I should probably finish my engineering degree. So then I went back to uni and started studying part-time while also working full-time, which it was some pretty long days. It was 12 to 14-hour days. It wasn't easy, but you got to do what you got to do, because that was the plan. You just keep working hard and you'll eventually get to where you want to be. And then it was time to start preparing to buy a house. Then COVID happened, and me and my wife were $30,000 in debt. Now, this was hidden information from both of us. We were both about 50-50 equal in our debt, and we didn't discuss it. We didn't like the thought of acknowledging it, let alone admitting a major flaw in our finances to each other. It got to me one day, and I had to come clean. I said to my wife, I'm significantly in debt, and we're not even close to having a house. We have zero savings. We're living week by week. I need your help to help me pay it off. And she came and said, I too am in severe debt. And it did suck at first, because trying to get help, we're both trying to get help and realize that we also need to help each other. That was quite an important lesson I learned. I think if you're in a relationship, one of the best things you can do is be open about your finances, both your goals in the future or lack thereof. It's okay to say you don't have any goals, but also I think not necessarily saying, I'm X amount of dollars in debt, but just saying that you have debt and your plan to do it. Because as soon as you acknowledge you have debt, you've got to think about how it's going to be paid off. And that might be paying the minimum repayments over however long it takes to pay off a credit card, or it might be smashing out payments every week as soon as you get paid, just putting everything onto a personal loan or a credit card up until it's paid off. There's no right way. There's more efficient ways, but everyone has their own path with how they pay off their credit, which I would like to do a future video explaining my methodology for paying off credit, and clearing debt was one of the best things I ever did in my life, but because I had to clear debt in order to prepare to save a house. It's hard to save for a house when half your pay is going to a credit card and loans and Afterpay and ZipPay and whatever other pay that you have. When my social group turned 30 or approached 30, that's when we started to buy houses. And as much as COVID was happening, we still wanted to break through that and get into the housing market. Now, this is also the time when the housing market just started going up a crazy amount. We had houses that were being bought by people from different cities, no building and pest, no inspection, just sight unseen and buying cash. And that is a scary prospect to hear about because I didn't know about this. I always thought that when you wanted to buy a house, it was at about $350,000 and you needed about 20 grand in your savings in order to have a deposit, and then the bank would be like, here's your money, here's your house, congratulations, that's the next milestone you've hit. I didn't even know about stamp duty. I didn't even know stamp duty existed. So that was a bit of a additional 20 grand shock. I was lucky that one of my best friends had recently bought a house and was very, very open with how much it actually cost. I was told that they went to a mortgage broker with $35,000 and were basically laughed at, saying, come back when you've got at least 70 to 80,000 plus. And if you want to get a house that's actually rather good, you need over $100,000. And that was such a terrifying moment for me and my wife, because we were still paying off debt as well as trying to save for a wedding, because we didn't want to have a wedding paid via credit cards and loans and all that. We didn't want to go back into debt. So we really, really just had to put everything to the side. And it was quite a struggle for several years trying to save money and pay off everything. And we weren't on the best pay either at the time. So, you can only pay off your debt with the money that you get from work. Yeah, so we were in debt and we found out we needed $120,000. So if you're $30,000 in debt and you need 120 grand, you need to save $150,000 in order to get a house. That broke me a lot. That was when I realized that the plan of life was not going to happen. So after me and my wife were fully open about our finances, about our debt, about our savings or lack thereof, we had a plan to pay it off, where we thought the best plan of action was to pay off one credit item at a time. So we started with the highest interest because that's what you're told from all the videos, and it did work. The other way that I had been told was pay off the debt that would make you feel the best. Luckily for us, it was both. So we went with the credit card with the highest interest, and every pay we got, we basically did about a month of, I wouldn't say budgeting, but figuring out how much we actually need to live on just through groceries if we didn't go out and do too much, how much we could actually put away to debt to get rid of that credit card. So we got our amount per week, and everything else, as soon as we got paid, went straight onto that credit card. And that worked rather well. As soon as we had a plan for removing credit, it just started going down significantly quicker. We noticed that the interest that we were paying was getting less and less. And when we finally paid off that credit card, it was such a relief that it was a motivation for more credit to be paid off. We just had this idea of how good would it be to have no debt so that we can get a house. But the no debt apart from a mortgage was such a great idea. So after paying off the credit card, then we tackled the next personal loan for my motorbike, and we just started paying off that, and it took several months of the same thing. We didn't adjust our spendings at all. We both received a pay rise in that time. However, we decided the best course of action would be to allocate that extra funding to the debt to just snowball that payoff. So we did. The next was the personal loan. So we paid off the personal loan. Well, paid off my personal loan and then paid off my wife's personal loan. And then after that, then it was just the Zip Pay and the Afterpay. And at that point there, we had a pretty good system. We just accepted that no matter what pay rises we get, until we have cleared all of our personal debt, we are not going to change our lifestyle. We're not going to have any lifestyle creep apart from just general inflation of if groceries go up, which they did over COVID. So we had to make a slight adjustment in our budget for that. But the best part was it wasn't really a budget. It was more an amount that we knew we wouldn't spend more than each week. And that's the amount that we stuck to. So we had the idea of we didn't want to have our account go into negative. So if we found out how much we had, add $50 extra per week to that amount for a bit of a buffer in case a random subscription that we forgot about 2 years ago came through or something like that. And then we literally put the rest of it onto the debt so that for all intents and purposes, we didn't have access to it. So that was working, because if we did approach the end of our budget each week, well then that's how it worked. I plan on covering many more topics in the future. These first few videos are more just a background of who I am so that I can get used to speaking in front of a camera, get some editing practice in again, learning how to do some B-roll shots and just using some generic ones in the meantime. But yeah, there's many more topics I want to cover. I want to go more in depth about how I did pay off my debt. I want to talk about my current strategy for shares and investments. For those of you who made it this far, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And please subscribe to my channel to follow my journey to success and financial freedom and hopefully teach you something along the way. That's about it. I'll see you next time.